Hello, and welcome to the Argyle AI Decision Maker Expo, live look at cutting edge tools. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have some important information to share with you, and then we'll turn the floor over to our esteemed opening keynote speaker. First, we would like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, UiPath. Our sponsor is committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booth from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag ArgyleDigital and follow us at Argyle Exec Forum. Also, be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I would like to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we have curated based on the feedback we have received over the years from our members. We have worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during today's session, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you. So during each session, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box on your screen. Following each presentation, we have set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Thank you again for joining us today. Now let's get started. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Koen Pauwels, Distinguished Professor of Marketing, founder of the Data-Initiative, and Associate Dean of Research at Northeastern University. We are super excited to have Dr. Pauwels for his opening keynote presentation titled AI in Action, Exploring Tools and Technology for Business Optimization and ROI. Welcome, Dr. Pauwels. Over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I realized that I can only see my presentation screen, so I would love to read out any questions at the end of my 15-20 minutes and answer them at that time. So thank you so much for the introduction. So indeed, I'm Associate Dean of Research here at Northeastern University, and it's my absolute pleasure to open this wonderful conference to talk about AI in action. Now, I do want to take a step back and talk about the inspiration for my talk and what was so surprising about the events that we have seen around AI in the last 1.5 years. The one thing that we always thought that would set us as humans apart from machines was imagination, as SpongeBob SquarePants here puts it. But that's, of course, not what happened. There's a wonderful interview of Bill Gates with Sam Altman, where they basically kind of, repeat what we had all expected, right? That AI has been around for decades, and the assumption was always that it would basically replace jobs that were very repetitive and did not require creativity and higher level thinking. So the assumption was that first AI would come first for blue collar jobs, then white collar, and maybe only then creatives, is that all? So as you know, that's not what happened. And one of the kind of interesting points of me in this one, I'm actually known within the field as a bit of a technology skeptic. So I'd love to try new things, but I don't like a lot of what I see. This goes back all the time when I came to this wonderful country in the late 90s, right? So just at the beginning of the intercom, the first, I would say, internet boom. I was in a presentation where people said, look, online shopping is going to take off, but only for stuff you can see or hear. We're going to produce a mouse that would give off a smell if you go over a perfume in an online shop. And I was the only person in that whole audience laughing out loud and say, no, we won't ever want a mouse that gives off a smell. Fast forward to 2022, when the metaverse was the big next thing, if you remember. I was very skeptical, and I wrote blogs about, hey, this is going to take at least 10, 20 years, according to the definition of the metaverse, at least. It's not going to be something in 2-3 years. Very often I get the criticism, you're way too old. Your teenage sons understand this. And my kids are a freshman in game design and a high schooler who spends all of his free time video gaming. And I actually spend more time in the metaverse than my kids. So our marketing head tells us that it's all about customer value and what you can get out of the tools and the killer application that ultimately will make new technologies successful. And that's why it was such a good fit for me to speak at this conference with some of the tools that I've seen actually work in action. Other thing to remember is also about consumer perception. My wife absolutely hates any of us wearing the VR glasses from any company. So we have to look beyond tech to social interactions and applications indeed that help us provide value for our customers. So I have 3 tools for you today. This one is developed by my colleagues here at Northeastern in the Data-Initiative. And this is simply comparing the different Gen AI applications. So 4bot basically says, hey, you type in your question, you submit your query, and you have, in this case, 5 Gen AIs simultaneously aiming to answer the same query. So what are some of the cool things that you see there? Number one, you see in action the latency of every tool. So some of these tools just take a lot longer to think and to come up with an answer, which may or may not be important in your application. You also see that they have a very different kind of risk aversion approach, right? So in this case, what is the best restaurant in Boston to dine during this month? ChatGPT 3.5 talks about varying experiences. ChatGPT 4, the paid version, talks about the type of cuisine, right? Whereas Palm PLM2 actually gives a concrete suggestion right away, the top of the hub, stunning views, and so forth. So do you want a tool that is much more general or something that's much more concrete? Llama 2 is even more vague and diffuse in terms of, hey, can you give me a better prompt, basically, because there's many great restaurants. So 4bot is one tool that I love to use to just kind of see how the same query would be answered differently by these different commercial solutions. Applications are plentiful, right? So what I like to do, I'm a person who works for about 2.5 decades in marketing mix modeling, generating forecasts from complex scenarios. And so I find AI to be extremely helpful for that one. Same thing with analyzing massive volumes of complex and unstructured data. And so you want tool at the end that looks at that one. Lots of my research has to do with KPIs and what is a KPI and how should they be aggregated. And I find a lot of benefits to basically leverage also myself with AI. Automating the creation of graphs and charts. I am, visually challenged, I would say, in the sense that it's hard for me to visualize much of my research. I'm the kind of weird person who prefers text over voice and voice over video. But I realize that most of my customers and clients are not that way. So AI is just a wonderful way for me to kind of fill my weak spots in that sense. Optimizing pricing strategies. So a lot of my research has been in pricing. And every time somebody asks me a question, hey, how should I price the 3 offers in my portfolio? There's wonderful research that can just kind of give you a pretty good answer to your very specific pricing question. And you can always have it checked by humans, of course, but I find that AI is pretty good in making these kind of summaries. I would say the most surprising use of Gen AI in the marketing field is the synthetic data. So instead of going out, finding a representative sample of thousands of consumers, let's say in the US, or hundreds in smaller countries like my native Belgium, you can actually ask AI questions, and depending on its sophistication, it's actually pretty good in giving you answers that real consumers would tell you. There's some limitations, and we'll get to that in a moment, in terms of creativity and thinking about what is possible. But AI is pretty good in representing the average consumer, who is very normally not that imaginative about which next products, for instance, your company should build, right? We all know the old Ford phrase that if he would have asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses instead of a car. And so I find generative AI to be pretty good in these average customer preferences, not necessarily in what we now have as beta or leading users that you can really count on to really envision what the future could be, and also what role your company could play in it. We have a lot of applications in terms of personalizing customer service, marketing, more effective targeting, and these are the kind of things that I'm also very much following. Some cool applications that I see. This is baby steps to the future. This is an AI application where you basically train the AI to see the world through the eyes of a baby. And so chair and ball were among the first words of this little AI. So I see it as a wonderful complement, or maybe even replacing some of the things that we now have to build in the real world. If you ever been to P&G's headquarters in Cincinnati, you know about this room where all of the furniture is completely oversized to make the Pampers employees think about what it is like to be a toddler and crawling around in this room. And so I find that AI is actually pretty good and cost effective in giving you that kind of simulations without having to build such a room for yourself in your company. One other thing that I developed that can be expanded. So I was overwhelmed with consultancy and requests on my time that I thought could be handled by people basically reading my previous blogs, newsletters, my papers, and so forth. And then, of course, I realized that that is very hard to do. So I basically programmed, this is with Delphi.ai, the Koenbot, as we call it, and I basically fed it with all of my published papers, right, which are all freely available online on marketingmetrics.com, but also all of my podcasts and all of my videos. And so this AI is trained on all of my published papers and interviews. And so it keeps a very nice voice in or text in and voice out. And it actually talks with my tone of voice, stop words, mannerisms. For some reason, it has a slight Indian accent that I find that I wanted to keep. And so questions such as, how does the personality of a CEO affect the management team's decision-making process, which is literally based on a paper of mine, gets you the type of answer that is very precise. It has the references that you can click on to my specific papers and interviews. We have been operating this for about 3 months now, and 3 major insights, if you're thinking about doing that yourself, right? Users really test the bot first with answers that they know. So just like a recommendation system that you trust more if it recommends you partially stuff you already have. We see users kind of checking the accuracy with questions that they know, right? So for instance, why did you leave Amazon, where I have a Substack about? You see that the Koenbot answers, pretty precisely based on what I have written, what is all publicly available. There's also, who is your favorite LiftLab employee? Ask, of course, by my favorite LiftLab employee. That is one of the companies that I consult for. And so it was very funny to see him asking that question and so forth. Also questions about colleagues, right? So Kusuma Ilawadi is a colleague that I worked with when we were both at the Tech School of Business. And so you can see that there's a lot of good answers there too, in terms of the research she is known for and what she has done. So we see that that's the first test. The second thing is that, so I programmed this bot to have a lot of follow-up questions to keep the conversation going. So compared with some of the vague answers that you saw in the Gen AI tools, Koenbot wants to give a precise answer so that you do get the satisfaction of kind of finding what you're looking for, but then it keeps the conversation going by saying, but what are the key objectives or goals for your marketing plan? And then, the user says, oh, the main objective is increase revenue by 20%. We're heavy on performance marketing, low on branding and brand awareness, and so forth. And then the bot kind of can refine the prompt in this way and give very specific advice to people in that situation. So these are the kind of keep the conversation going while giving immediate benefit that we find works very well. And then the final one, how do you tinker with hallucination versus I don't know the answer, right? So sometimes when you ask a question, the answer actually comes not from my research and so forth, but from broader marketing literature, which is fantastic because you often want that to have, but you want to limit hallucination. And so the two main ways that I do that is either by kind of setting in this tool, the creativity quotient. So we started with high creativity and we narrowed it down to 5. Because in our testing, there were just some answers that were not accurate enough. Another great way to do this is to just communicate to the user that if they want a very precise and peer-reviewed answer, they should say, what is the answer to this using only your published research? And so you can basically train your user to have these prompts when they want a really precise answer. For instance, one of the things that I answer in there, which is from a podcast called the Champagne Podcast, is how do you open a bottle of champagne? It's because the podcast organizer sent me a bottle of champagne and we talked for the first 5 minutes about champagne before we get into marketing modeling. And so the Koenbot has a very precise answer to that one, but it's of course not based on my published research. So these are some of the things to take in mind. Some successes outside of this. So we have seen fantastic working papers documenting how AI outperforms humans in creating visual assets throughout the purchase funnel based on own and competitors' assets. And this is based on research by my colleague David Schweidel. So what they did is, this is for car ads. They basically set the communication objectives, right? So do you want to promote sales, the brand identity? They fed AI with all of the existing ads. And then they had AI generate ads. And then they had human evaluators completely blind to what was AI, what was human generated, score the ads. And so the big surprise in that paper is that the AI generated ads on average scored better than the actual ads. So it was not just what I thought that, hey, a lot of the AI generated ads, are just not that good, but you get a few outliers that are just fantastic and maybe something that no human could have thought about. It was that even on average, the AI ads scored better than the human generated ads. And also that they were better at every stage of the purchase funnel. So whether your goal is awareness or consideration or purchase intent. So I thought that was pretty impressive. AI also gets used a lot in customer service and gets very meaningful insights. Sometimes it's better than the company itself. So we all know this from a few months ago that Air Canada was legally obliged by a judge to apply a solution that its chatbot came up with that was really satisfying to the customer and encouraged the customer to do a certain booking, even though Air Canada, as the employees, did not necessarily think that was in the best interest. So sometimes AI interactions can really tell you what customers can use and find very important for their satisfaction. Some more ways in which AI can help customers. I do a lot of work in retail. And so bringing AI to physical shops and reimagining the physical store is a key attention point. You can scan shopper social media selfies to advise on hair products, given permission, of course. Give product descriptions based on shopper hipness, age, and gender. So we are slowly going towards the famous scene in Minority Report, where you get much more personalized recommendations when you enter the store. And so different ways to either help shoppers provide more convenience if they want that one, or to provide more entertainment to shoppers who really want to be entertained in their shopping journey. And of course, AI can also help you decide, which mood the consumer is in at the moment. I think some of the final things that I see in the future is really towards the feeling economy. So as I said, we thought about AI taking over more mechanical machine jobs. Right now, we're really at the thinking economy, where AI is to some extent replacing and mostly complementing humans in thinking jobs. And so I see the evolution towards more intuitive AI that is also going to get much better in helping people with more feeling things. A key application, for instance, is robots helping elderly people do more exercise. So nurses have basically experienced that getting people out of their rooms and actually going to the exercise place and encouraging them is very, very important, but they don't always have the staffing or the time to help that. And so as long as the AI bot gives people very specific and supportive comments and says things like, hey, you're doing a great job, but I see that your left leg is a bit wobbly. Do you want to stop, or do you want to go to an activity that is less taxing on your left leg? That then people get much more used to having this AI generated help. So there's some, of course, challenges in that area, but I see this as a really nice kind of way to think about the future. This doesn't mean that it's all a rose garden. There's some key improvements that are needed, also summarized by Altman. So number one, reliability, right? So if you ask one question, you get possibly thousands of responses. And GPT-4, for instance, as he admits, can't pick the best one out yet. So there's a lot of improvement in reliability and accuracy that needs to happen for this to really take hold. Customization, so different people want different assumptions. We have seen a lot of press about certain AI benefit and certain worldviews. People also want to bring in their own data, of course, like your email, your calendar. So there has to be a safe way for your AI to connect to your personal data sources and making it much more useful to you. And then finally, I typically think about the big questions also. How about democracy? So I recently published this book, Break the Wall, Why and How to Democratize Digital in Your Business, which talks about and interviews lots of executives into using this to better organize your business and making sure the right data is at everybody's fingertips. My vision of the future, it's still, human plus AI. And so we do have to rethink how we organize our companies to do this and to how to avoid the pitfalls in implementation. And then one of the final things is that I've been, in the business of constructing analytical dashboards for about 20 years. And what I always see as a tension is giving the users what they want. So in a scheme of like 6 things, maybe 4 or 5 things should be exactly the format and the graphs that you think you need to make a decision. But that 1 out of 6 is reserved for AI to kind of put an insight there that you may not have thought about. So good AI is not just kind of giving you back what you say that you wanted, but maybe also, give you what you need. And so try to implement the serendipity into AI algorithms to help you discover novel and relevant solutions, avoid boredom, and enhance satisfaction would be a very cool kind of threat to keep in mind for the future. I think I'm running out of time, so I won't go too deep into this one. Just want to say about marketing mix modeling. So that's my third tool. Instead of just estimating one model, why don't we estimate all reasonable models and then select the most useful for your planning purposes? So with MMM Labs, I'm developing this auto marketing mix model where it's open source and you can plug in your data and all reasonable models are estimated. And then, based on human expertise, there is an algorithm that tries to pick the best one for your purposes. So that's the final tool here. Finally, I'm using AI also to optimize my fundraising. There's just, I think, 2 days left. I just run the Boston Marathon for these high schoolers, and I would just love to alert you to the ways that helps my neighborhood too. Okay, so key takeaways. AI is very important. Gen AI is new for better or for worse. It's not as good in things like math problems, and it hallucinates. But we have key improvements to make. The business opportunities and tools are, even for me as a technology skeptic, very exciting. And so, as you can see, experimenting with them and exploring them is I think, a necessity to see which one is best for you. But you continue to have the need to assess threats, to privacy, and to reliability, and improve the tools to continue. So I think that's all I have. Very happy to hear your questions. Okay. Let me read the one that Melissa puts on, right? Given the growing ability of technology to create lifelike, believable artifacts, how can we best protect AI systems hallucinating and then using those technologies to fabricate evidence? Yes, there is this kind of danger that everything becomes this closed loop, right, of AI generating things that are then evaluated by AI. It's important to realize that a lot of what we do still has to go through human evaluation, right? So as long as we, for instance, in marketing, that we're selling to humans, ultimately a human has to say, yes, I really like this, or yes, I trust the system to make decisions on. So I think as long as we have that going for us, a lot of the AI literacy comes to think about, if you ask a question to, for instance, a chatbot, right? Think about first how you would answer that question, and what are some of the range of possibilities that you see, so that you have a good idea about actually interpreting the AI thing. So also, for instance, at Northeastern University, we don't want our students to just kind of take this for granted. We train them to first come up with their own, how they would answer the prompt, to then be able to interpret what the answer is. Other questions? Okay. So maybe one thing I didn't had too much time to elaborate on, right? Given the purpose is, and I think this goes very much with the question, right? I also see AI to be used to solve big society problems. And so, in terms of how do consumers evaluate privacy, price, and convenience, we have several research programs here to basically try to look at different segments. Of customers that really value their privacy, consumers that really value their convenience. And so consumers that basically wants to have a very creative AI that comes up with things that never thought about, versus people who just want a very concrete and very curated answer to their questions. So I think there it's really kind of up to us to do the right research to understand how customers would want to trade off, and then also build it in our tools that are not just very accurate, but also can be explained both to customers and to regulators in a way that it's not just a black box, but that you can pinpoint to exactly what information is used to feed into these systems. How are we using the data that you put in and the questions that you put in? And then what will we do with the data, of course? So everything that you kind of know from how the internet is currently being used, and the threats and the challenges there also apply to AI. Oh, sorry. I see at the Q&A, the model actually being used. Okay. So let me answer that in private. Happy to I think you have my email. Happy to answer that in a longer chat offline. Thank you very much for the question, young man. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Powers, for an excellent keynote. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Our next session will begin at 11:35 a.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership session titled UiPath Autopilot in Action: 5 Use Cases that Supercharge Productivity. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.